Hi, everybody, and welcome to TNMCoaching Unplugged podcast. I'm your host, Zoran Todorovic. I'm so happy and joyful to be with you once again. And thank you so much for coming to this podcast week after week, listening to the brightest mind in personal development industry, including coaching, leadership development, personal development. I'm so grateful to have this wonderful guest today. And before I introduce you, I'm going to tell you the topic is super interesting because it's all about the AI and leadership. And this is one of these places when we look into the AI from a different point of view. We look into the AI from the point of view of leadership. So what happens with leadership and AI? What is the role of leader when it comes to AI? What are the different challenges that leaders can face when it comes to the existing current environment in the AI? What are the opportunities for leveraging AI in the workplace? So we're going to be talking a little bit more from that point of view because the AI is, of course, a hot topic. And Judith Eberl, she is a senior coach and trainer, over 2 decades of experience in leadership development, coaching, and training. She's based in Switzerland with her wonderful family. She also is making significant impact in the coaching, leadership development industry by her passion for the AI and leadership. She was one of the first people that put this into my attention, into my consciousness. And I remember years back, Judith began talking about that connection. What is the importance of AI and leadership? How can we work with this? How can we educate leaders? How can we train leaders? How can we bring the awareness? And, she was true pioneer in my point of view when it comes to this topic. And I'm so grateful and happy to have her today on this podcast because we're going to just unfold and talk and learn and grow together in our understanding in that relationship. So Judith, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And look, I've decided today to be outdoors because it's summer and we're recording in summer and it's lovely. And I was thinking I'm in the office every day, all day. So when I am right now, so it's nice and naturey with the organic intelligence around me.
Wonderful. Here it's also very organic, but it's pouring rain and it's thunderstorming. So we have all climate realities present in our conversation.
All the elements. So tell me, just to dive into it, what was your personal journey in respect to AI? How did you kind of begin to become curious? What happened in your life? Because our audience is always curious to know you a little bit more in relationship to the topic that we're discussing today.
Sure. As you mentioned, my passion started quite a while ago. It was actually 2018 when I was involved in a big organizational project. It was a big insurance company that at that time had identified AI as the biggest strategic risk. And they had decided to do a big program actually over 2 or 3 years involving the whole organization, starting from the leadership level, but then really going all the levels down to learn and understand about what AI is, how it is a risk, and where there are opportunities. And I was leading the leadership development activities, and therefore I started engaging with, AI developers, with organizations that were leveraging already at that time on AI. So for me, it was like, wow, it was such a discovery. It was like, oh my God. And starting from then, I have never given up diving into it, continue learning, working with leaders in various organizations. So this is, I think, where my interest started.
Mm-hmm. And it's lovely that you're in that space, because a lot of the time when people have guests on the podcast talking about AI, they're usually tech geeks, experts, people who are programming the AI, people who are behind, like in the back office of the AI, and who give you this very complicated language that some of us cannot understand and cannot relate because it's a technical software development language. It's so refreshing to have somebody like you with a completely different background. So with your background, to what extent do you think you understand the AI? What would you say?
Well, I would say that it's impossible for anyone to understand AI. And I think right now, starting with OpenAI and the access to ChatGPT from November 2022. And this is where I think a big shift happened, right? In terms of awareness and people playing with part of AI, but a minimal part of AI. AI is such a wide landscape. We are talking about so many different technologies that I really think that there is no one person that can be expert in every AI field. But of course, that there are specific expertises, but even developers would focus on one technology or a few technologies.
Yeah, and I love to hear that, because you're absolutely right. It's such a vast and amazing field that, we sense make it from a different point of view. So you mentioned that OpenAI emerged, and what is the current reality of the AI? What's really going on with the OpenAI? What's going on with the ChatGPT? What are you seeing from your point of view?
I have really experienced that shift in perception and awareness, because when I started, and the years I would say between 2008 and 2022, people were still, relating to it like, okay, this is so far away, and should we even dedicate time and invest time on thinking about implications, application? And then OpenAI decided to give that free access, which I think was really something incredible, because since then everyone can play with it. A lot of people are actively playing with it, with the effect that a lot is happening very, very fast. And I think right now the perception I have that it's big chaos. There is a lot of emotions around, AI, or what people think AI is and can do. So there are people that started totally loving it and saying, oh my God, this can, do so many things for me and can make my life better. And other people that would really hate it and say, I even don't want to access, and I don't want to understand. This is creating fear for me. So from my point of view, I think right now it's a very, very chaotic field, driven by a lot of emotions.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you this towards the end of the podcast, but now we can dive into it. So we have this division, as you said. Some people are very passionate about AI. I also have clients and friends and family members who are actually worshiping AI. I would be in a conversation, they will come and they would say, oh my God, you cannot believe what I've managed to do with the AI today. And I've done this and I've done that. In few minutes, I have produced this. In 10 minutes, I made that. It really helped me out. So there is this fascination of the capabilities, but also we're seeing the other side of this when people, as you said, are quite close to it and people are fearful of it. So when you look into that fear, what do you think people are afraid of from your perspective?
I still think that the fear of losing jobs, of having to go out of the comfort zone of how we have always done things, how we have always interpreted certain organizational roles. I think this is what people are fearing, because they don't understand, right? So there is this lack of understanding of knowledge, which drives that fear, and therefore people start blocking. And I have to say, I have been delivering various workshops over the last, I would say, particularly over the last couple of years. In the workshops, the first thing is to really face the fear and the emotion that are in the room before even having an opportunity to tap into the learning mode. So it is driving a lot of our behavior right now, and it's making this chaotic. People are all over the place, and I personally think that it goes to the extremes. People are loving it too much or hating it too much. To a certain extent, I think right now we should put ourselves in a space of openness, of curiosity. We should dedicate time to it. We should learn without necessarily jumping into doing all kind of things without understanding why, how, and the implications of certain implementations of AI.
Yeah. And I know this is the big question for you right now. So, and we're focusing on the context of leadership in AI, and we really want to zoom into that space, the leaders within the organizations, leaders of the team, leaders of the projects, leaders for the cross functions, people who are working for the big organization, and the application of AI in their everyday work life, which is something that we would really love to inspire. So when the leaders come into the workshops with you, and you said that you trained quite few people in the last few years when it comes to the AI. So first thing you mentioned, it's like really balancing that emotion, whatever the emotion is, like resistance to the change, which is very human, isn't it? You want things to be the same. Fear of losing jobs, as you said, because I've been traveling in Asia right now for a few weeks, and the topic there for me with the Asian leaders was that exactly, what are we going to do? The AI is going to take everything from us, because that's also an assumption that people make. And you said that all of these strong emotions are there because we don't know enough. We're assuming certain things. We don't understand it. So because we don't have this clarity in our mind, then we are driven with the emotions of excitement or we're completely fearful around this. So in a nutshell, I know this is the big question for you. So what are the few things that people do need to understand about the AI and leadership and application of the AI in their work life in order for them to rebalance their emotions and to begin engaging with it in the most creative and constructive way?
I think that leaders have to acknowledge and understand that AI is a reality. Mm-hmm. And it's not an IT topic. And this is the first shift. In the past, introduction of a technology in organizations would have been naturally, driven by the IT department, and then they would take it and then people would adapt to it. But this is not what is happening right now, because there are organizations that have not decided to implement or introduce any AI technology, but people are utilizing ChatGPT to produce text, to produce emails, and that is not driven by the internal IT or an organizational decision. Right. So I think there is right now this management of understanding what is happening and how that is influencing what is being done in their own team. So I think there is a necessity to realize and to look into what is happening. And then there is obviously a responsibility to drive organizations to understand how to structurally embed AI and where to embed it. And on the other hand, obviously there needs to be also the attention to support people in the teams, right, to go through this understanding in this process. So I think the leader, well, this has been true always, has a central role, but in these times, even more so. I think it is really a pivotal moment where the leaders need to dedicate time to really understand what is happening.
Yeah. And I love that distinction, Judy, that you're drawing for us, which is this is not an AI, this is not an IT tool. And I remember with different technology and softwares, when I worked in big organization, when the rollout happens, we're using this tool and we're using that tool to be able to be more organized. And you're using the term, the AI is reality. And this is exactly how I see it, because when you are beginning to build collaborative relationship with the AI and you begin developing your own relationship, this is also something very specific, isn't it, as a leader? Then the game changes, because it's not only a software, it's something else then. It's something else that really helps you, supports you to do your job well. So it's really good that this is the first element of mind shift. So people really have to shift how they perceive it, right? And then when people begin shifting and being a little bit more open, what is the next step? What then do we need to do to develop that relationship, or to start using it, or to start implementing from your perspective, especially in leadership? Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I think what comes natural as next step is to reflect. Let's take an example of certain organizational roles. Mm. Let's take human resources, for example. Right. Okay, so a reflection could go around, okay, how could AI support what we have to do in our field of human resources? We have to attract people, we have to train people. There are different activities that we have to deliver as human resources. And I think what is needed there is to understand which parts of the process could be potentially supported by AI, optimized. Mm-hmm. And what does this mean in terms of how we interact with that support, how far we want to get with that support. And this is all, there needs to be a reflection around it. So there needs to be a diving into understanding what we can and what we want, delegate, because ultimately it's a delegation.
Delegation. Yeah.
And how much we want to give away. That's also something. And how do we then connect in the collaboration and the partnership with the technology, and where can we then, as human beings, make a difference? And I think if I project myself into 10 years, for example, where we have more and more AI as part of our processes, what I'm envisaging is really that as humans, we are going to do things in a different way. We'll have to develop different new competencies. So there is a lot that will have to change also in the whole education system.
Yeah. The whole term of upskilling and reskilling and upskilling, and this is something very popular for everybody nowadays. And I agree with you that, we will become different as a result of this, and the new things will come as far as competencies, how we do the work. What do we do with our time, actually? So what you're saying is that the organization really has to assess with the different roles, and you said human resources, where do we use it? How do we use it? What is our team agreement? How does the AI add value? What do we delegate? What do we keep for ourselves? How do we maintain control? So it's up to everybody to really look into it. And ultimately, it's about delegating certain things or supporting us to do it even in a better way, correct?
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I personally see a lot of opportunities in that, because I think it frees up time for us to do things in a more meaningful way and to really dedicate our time where we can make a difference. But I also think that there is a risk in delegating too much. We come to a point where we actually have no clue why AI is coming up with certain suggestions, with certain decisions. It's, there is the whole field of unexplainable AI. And I think that's something that intrigues me, where I see a limit of the humans that might decide not to go in a certain direction because they don't understand, and maybe the opportunity from the technology to actually take us where it would be a better direction. So there is a lot that we need to understand and learn, and I think that is also true for leaders. Leaders need to really develop new competencies. When we talk about leadership development, I think also leaders really need to be better equipped to face what needs to be addressed right now.
So you talked to us about the organizational perspective, and I love that, what you highlighted at the end, which is this balance, how much do we delegate, how much do we keep? And I think it's really important for us to walk that line of balancing consciously and mindfully, instead of just dumping everything, because there's a tendency of that, I'm tired, I'm stressed out, I have too much to do, it's too complicated, it takes too much time, let me just give it away, and something happens and it gives back to me. And so we need to be consciously mindful of that. So that's our kind of discretion to be really careful. But then the other one, it's the leaders. So you mentioned the leaders, number one, they will need to have new skills. So let's think about that. For the leaders who are listening to this podcast, where do we need to be as leaders? Where do leaders need to be exactly in relationship to the AI right now? And so what is the role of the leader?
Well, I think, as we said, the leader needs to drive what is happening right now. So understand, drive certain decisions in organizations in terms of what to implement, how to implement, why to implement, and involving the people and supporting the people to understand what is happening. One thing comes to my mind. A client reached out to us once, and he was saying, we have introduced AI. It's delivering wonderful results, but people are not utilizing it. They are not leveraging on it. So it's really supporting people. The role of the leader is to support people to really understand and take them on that journey of understanding, utilizing, interacting with something which is still, fearful on one hand. So this is what a leader needs to do. And I would say in terms of leadership competencies, the first element I would like to highlight is digital literacy. I really like this term because it's about it's not about becoming an AI specialist. As I mentioned, I don't believe that this is possible in absolute terms. But I think what a leader needs to understand is what the landscape looks like and what certain AI technologies can do. And this means dedicating time to actually look for that information. So this is the first element. And then it's about making sense out of all the information. One thing that AI really does well is to analyze data and give a lot of information. Mm-hmm. And this is where the leader needs to then make sense out of everything, every information, and support the decision-making process around it. So this is the other element. And as I mentioned, AI and moving in that field is not a technical IT aspect. So there is a certain transdisciplinarity happening. So if I deal with human resources, I can't say AI is not a topic that I should deal with. I need to relate to that, and I need to drive that, thinking process in my team and in the organization towards something that is what the organization wants to do as well. And then, ultimately, I think that emotional intelligence is more and more important. We've been talking about emotional intelligence for many, many years. But I think the more we are in a space of AI as part of our reality, the more important it is that leaders really are aware about their own emotions, the emotions of people. Emotional and social intelligence is something that I think is becoming even more relevant now.
Yeah, and I really want to kind of highlight certain things for the listeners, that this digital literacy, being able to be digital literate, like financially literate, being able to understand the landscape. It's a term that is so important, and I think that this is something that we all are invited to do by upskilling, learning more, gaining the competencies, gaining the understanding and knowledge. I think that's super, super important, because otherwise, the rapid evolution of technology will leave people behind because you will not be able to catch up. And that's the truth. It's not a scarcity mentality. It's just the speed of the development, how AI is able to develop. And I love, Judith, what you're saying about emotional and social intelligence. How can we preserve that relationship with ourselves in relationship with technology? And I think that, technology can really inspire certain emotions inside of us, as you said, lack of control, not knowing what to do, the speed, the information, the decision-making, sense-making. How do you make these decisions when you receive information from the AI? And how centered, present, and balanced you are in your emotions, and how social intelligence you are to spot what's going on with people as well. I think that's the balance, isn't it? That's something that we really need to be mindful. So it's not going all the way into the digital landscape of the AI and losing the humanity. It's preserving humanity and then relating to the AI from that point of view, right?
Yes. And I think the human side and who we are is even more important. That's what I want to say, because in the last years, it was a lot about what we do. I'm talking about organizational terminology. I am a learning and development specialist, and this is what I do. Okay, but actually, it's about who I am, and how I can add value, where there are certain activities that are outsourced to AI. And that's where I think that awareness, that understanding of what I can and I want to do to make a difference, this is where we will differentiate quality, where the rest, will be kind of equally leveled by AI supporting us.
Right, of course.
That's where we make the difference.
Exactly, exactly. And I always think about, how that difference can be really made in the most beautiful way. So what are the best case scenarios? So let's talk about that. You're moving into the collaboration, between the AI and humanity, and AI and us. So what are you seeing is the most positive reality that we can experience, and good cases?
I think that AI can, and various AI technologies can really support us in a world that is more and more complex. So what we are all living is a world of constant changes, the speed of things happening, since 2022 with OpenAI, what has happened until now. It's incredible. The impact of things is incredible. And this is something that we and leaders have to deal with. So I do honestly think that AI can be a real partner in terms of supporting us to understand, read data, drive decision-making in organizations. So for me, that's where AI can and should support us. Right now, it's about, as you said very nicely, it's a mindful choice and a mindful process. So now I think it's really, really important that we collectively drive this reflection and decision of how far to go, because ultimately AI is not something that is happening to us. It's a technology that is present, but it's us deciding how to utilize it. So I think there is a collective responsibility there in a field where there is very little regulation so far because things are happening too fast. So I think I do really believe in a human and AI collaboration, being mindful that this is a very important period for us to really, stop, reflect, and act.
Yeah, stop, reflect, and act. And I love that. One of the funny quotes that I always remember about the AI is a professor that I'm, following. He's a professor of philosophy, and he's talking about the AI, and he says that the washing machine and dishwasher or machine that washes clothes, it's a primitive AI. I didn't even know about it. He says, yeah, that's a primitive AI. He says, when we used to wash our clothes in the rivers, in the bathtubs, really, really heavy labor work, and then somebody came, programmed something from us, created a very primitive version of AI, and here it is. We can wash our clothes using the washing machine very quickly, very efficiently. But even at that time, people were resisting. He says, my grandmother, it took us a very long time to buy her the equipment. She really wanted to continuously wash the clothes in the bathtub. That was her habit. That was her behavior. That was something that she was used to and in control. And it took her long time to adapt. I think that how things are growing right now, we don't have this long time to adapt because we are seeing exponential growth, right? It's something that is, would you agree? Yeah.
Totally. And just to add some figures there, as we all know, November 2022, OpenAI created the access to ChatGPT. And I think in January, it was already a few million people utilizing, right? So I think the speed of people really jumping very fast into the experimenting is something that I think is part of our reality, which is great on one hand. On the other hand, it is bringing certain risks because things are happening and we don't even think about the impact.
Yeah. So that's a dilemma, right? So we need to be mindful of the dilemma of that we're not aware of the impact. We're doing something with lack of awareness and we just,
And again, and this is where the leader can do a lot when it comes to organizational reality, to really, have also a conversation with the team to what are you doing, what are you experimenting, learning from each other. I think experimenting is really, really important when it comes to moving into a different zone. And then collectively have a conversation and collectively make a choice on what we want to do right now and what we don't want to do right now, knowing that there is an evolution anyways, because technologies are evolving constantly and we have a lot that is already present and a lot that will be coming, is already around the corner.
And I love to mention that transparency is super important for leaders because I've been in the team recently that I was coaching Judith, and half of the team were kind of secretive about their usage of AI because it was not officially said you can use it, right? So people are struggling with certain tasks, with reports, with the balancing of the balance sheet, and they were using it, but nobody knew how everybody else was using it until I came in the room. I said, okay, let's talk about the AI. How are you using it? And people are like, oh, I'm doing this. And then the whole team lit up because they had this clear information sharing when they literally come out of the woods, come out of the shadows. So being afraid or ashamed or little bit secretive about, I'm doing something which is not really defined. So I think for the leaders, it's super important to put it in the light, to have conversations with people, to understand their use, their relationship, what are they doing, their fascination or resistance, whatever is going on, just to make sure that now we know what's going on and the team then can be in a coherent space of us all aligning in our unit, right?
Yes, and what you're mentioning again takes us back to emotional intelligence, because it's managing and bringing those emotions, together and move on with those.
Yeah.
So, yes.
Yeah. So to highlight, we can talk about this topic forever. I mean, this is such a beautiful topic. What I would love to do, just to highlight a few things when it comes to leaders and people who are listening for that lens, make sure that you have this growth mindset, that you're curious, that you're open, that you're willing to have a beginner's mind. We always teach Judith, right, in our courses, how important it is to open up, to learn, to explore, challenge yourself to develop new competencies like digital literacy, that you understand more. Challenge yourself to begin using the AI to help you sense make, right? To make sense about the data, the information that you receive. Open up to this new adaptive thinking. We talk about this all the time, agility, adaptability, our ability to process complex systematic information. Open up your brain to be trained to do that as well. And then what Judith is highlighting also, make sure that your social and emotional intelligence is intact, that you are connected to yourself, that you're not just within the context of the software of the machine, but you're also managing your emotions and emotions of other people, right? Yeah. So, and of course, Judith and her team and TNMCoaching, we're really passionate about this topic. As you can see, you can learn a lot from us, from our UNAI programs and different programs that we're introducing around the AI topic. So when leaders come to your training, Judith, so we get at the beginning, I ask you these questions, you work with this resistance, you understand their relationship, you get them through the whole process. So what happens at the end, so what are you seeing leaders are saying to you after the training and the workshop as a feedback?
Well, generally, we already in class, we interact with AI technology. So there is a first practical application. And I would say oftentimes people that were resistant at the beginning have the spark of curiosity is present at the end of the workshop. But I think even more interesting is actually to work with entire teams and entire units to help them explore where to introduce AI and how to deal, how to do that. So there is various activities that I think it's really, it needs to, you have to come from the knowledge and digital literacy, the knowledge landscape, but also in terms of reflecting about processes and possible introduction opportunities. So these are, I would say, the two main areas.
Mm-hmm. And do they get passionate for it at the end? Do they get, oh, wow, do they share the passion? They're still walking with the caution?
I would say who was really resistant at the beginning.
Yeah.
Very difficult that they will become totally passionate. But for sure, they understand the implications and the responsibility they have in dealing with it. So I think they are more active in seeking for and leveraging that in the teams. And in the team, there is always someone who's really passionate about it. So, it's a combination. Sometimes the leader is not particularly passionate, but, there are certain people in the team that are really totally there and even beyond. And this is, again, something that needs to be balanced.
Yeah. So your role as a leader, what Judith and I are saying to you, is to support collaborators in transforming their journey, towards the AI. And it's also important as a leader to open up to learn new leadership competencies, but also to help team members reflect, gain new skills, explore, to hold that space of possibility, and to not to be afraid to lead the organization towards the new ways of working, the new ways of being, because we are, we're creatures of habits. We know this about ourselves. We talked about this on our podcast so much. Just the other week, we related or we recorded the podcast around how to overcome the habits and how to create new habits, how to rewire our brain neurologically. What do we do with that? So we do know that we are creatures of habits. We want things to be same old on a certain level. So working through that resistance, then as a leader, we're inviting you to drive this conversation of reflection to where, as Judith beautifully pointed, where to introduce the AI, what kind of the technology and what kind of the AI it's needed for that specific job role or the topic or something that we would love to delegate. And then also open up to use the AI and inspire team members to help them with the decision making. As Judith said, this is a complex world right now. There's so many things to take into consideration, and it's getting more complex. I think one of the beautiful roles of AI is to help us make these informed decisions when it provides the data to really sit down, to take the time. And for me, Judith, why I love it so much, I think that people always work with this assumption that we don't have enough time in the day to accomplish everything. So it's intense, right? For all of us, families, kids, social events, work-related topics, conversations, unpredictable things. So we never have enough time. And I think that the beautiful thing about the AI and how I would love to leave audience from my point of view is that in the future, there will be a moment when we will have enough time, when AI might take certain things away from us and we can delegate, but then we can think, we can create, we can stay present, we can really have that precious time that is necessary for us to make choices and decisions instead of being rushed all the time to make certain choices and decisions without the enough air or space to really tune, to really sense, right, and make choices. So I would love to see that reality. Judith, for you, how would you like to leave the audience with? What is something that you would love to share as a call for action, your reflection, anything that you feel it's important for the people who are listening to this podcast to take along with them?
Would like to repoint the attention to the responsibility we all have in shaping the future that we want to see. This is a collective responsibility. It's a phenomenon that is there to stay. It's a phenomenon that is impacting all of us, and it's up to us to decide how to make the best use out of the technology and the opportunities that can emerge from this partnership. So I think it's really a call to action to say, don't stay in the space of total in for everything, no go for at all. There is something in between that for sure can help us create a better world.
Ladies and gentlemen, Judith Eberl, thank you so much for joining Judith today. It was really lovely to have this conversation with you. I've learned so much. I'm sure the audience learned so much as well. And for everybody who is tuning into this TNM Coaching Unplugged podcast, thank you so much for listening, for sharing. We're receiving wonderful feedback. We're growing because of you. So keep on sharing this with your friends, family, with your colleagues. If this topic is relevant to you as well, in your coworkers, please make sure they know about it. And we're going to reference all the programs around you and AI and how you can learn and upskill yourself to the next level and beyond. Once again, thank you for tuning in. And Judith, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Bye.